Week 16 has gotten here. Fast as you can. Joining us tonight is the Gingerbeard Man. It is the Fantasy in Frames, Fourth in Frames podcast for Week 16, where we're going to bring you our smash, our pass, some stash, and probably talk a little fantasy playoffs. Let's get it popping.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
What's up, everybody? Yeah, Rhett Manuel's not with us tonight. Unfortunately, he's covering some basketball in Louisiana. But man, we have the sixth man of the year potentially for the Fantasy and Frames family joining us tonight. The Gingerbeard Man himself, Rich Sickles. Rich, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good. You know, just got done with the show with Jorge, who's rumor has it. Yep. There I am. Yeah, no, just got done with the Dynasty 365 show, and you know, I'm just jacked. This is a great night. It's a great night. Just football, all night long. Let's do this.
Yeah, and you get my co-host, my friend, my brother, Drew Scott, to join us. How much better than that can you get, Drew? What up, man?
Can't get much better, man. And apparently we have family in the comments too, because this last name looks very familiar, Rich. So what's the relation here?
That's my older brother right there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate you joining us, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
Dale, power tools.
Dale. I hope Dale's in the playoffs. I hope everybody listening is. I mean, you're either you fall in two categories if you're tuning in tonight. You're in the playoffs, semifinals for most, I would hope, unless you're in a weird league, or you're just a lover of the show, a family member, or a supporter, or you got lost. You were looking for something else, and you stumbled across the Fourth and Frame show. But I don't care why you're here. We're happy to have you. And as I said, we're going to talk a little playoff Week 16. It's safe to say now, Rich, that every week is the most important week of the season when it's win or go home. But in this case, do you look at this differently? Do you look at this as not completely different, but it's, yeah, if you win, you go to the championship. But if you lose, do you have third place winnings in some of your leagues, Rich?
Yeah, there is some third place winnings. I know that we've also tried to make it so that there's something to play for. We try to anyways with a lot of the redraft leagues that I'm in. We do whoever wins the toilet bowl gets first pick in the derby draft that we have for picking who gets to go first the next year. So basically the 101 is on the block if you can keep competing. So yeah, no, we try to make it interesting.
I've always been a fan of that, Drew, is having, keeping people involved, having it factor in, especially if it's in a dynasty, and this Rich is, this is just redraft. We don't have all the fun, chaos. So here's the question of redraft, I guess. And you guys, again, exclusively for redraft. If you're not in the playoffs, can you make waiver moves? Rich, yes, no.
Ooh. Well, so because most of my redrafts are shooting for that derby draft pick, I allow it, but I've noticed a lot of angst and anger lately, and I've come around more to the idea of locking up those waiver wire moves from the people that are not in the playoffs, because yeah, that does suck.
With Drew, with nothing on the line. Let's say there is no implications towards next year whatsoever. Strictly redraft. Get rid of them.
Yeah. If there's no implications for next year, for the rest of the year, if there's nothing to play for in the consolation bracket, if it's not like a keeper league or something like that where you might be able to stash somebody, yeah. If you're not playing for anything, there's no point in allowing ad drops for people that aren't in the playoffs. If you want to ad drop people that bad, make the damn playoffs.
That's what I think. I know there's some people in the chat that probably disagrees. People out there
I
don't
think
care.
there's a comment that you definitely agree with in the comment.
You know what, Susie? Coming from a Rams fan, it's nothing. It's a gnat on a bull that just swats it off with its tail, and so that's the way I look at that.
Hey, the Rams will always have that one Monday Night Football game over Kansas City.
Congratulations!
I know you remember the one. We will always have that.
I know. Hey, you know what though? They did on Sunday Night Football. They recognized the greatest show on turf, which always has a special place in my heart, just because it was
that was
20,
cool.
15 minutes away. But welcome in, William. All right, guys. First question of the night at quarterback, which we expect is going to be probably the predominant position of choosing one to play, and this is Geno Smith, Bo Nix, Cooper Rush, or Drake May. Rich, you want to tackle that one first? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm really torn here. Because on the waiver wire show on Mondays, I just was touting Drake May and was saying last night that you need to grab him. I mean, he is quarterback 12 since week 6, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. So, you know what? I'm gonna stick with my gut and my earlier call, and I'm gonna say Drake May.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, Buffalo, obviously, they're going to score at will, but that just means that Drake May and company will have to try to do the exact same. You don't have to worry too much about, a running attack. That's for sure. Drew, what do you think?
Exactly.
It's really tough, man. I lean Bo Nix. The matchup isn't terrible against the Chargers. They're kind of middle of the pack against fantasy quarterbacks. The Broncos have an implied team total over 19 points, so not a ton of points, but Nix can get you there with his arm and his legs. So I think I would go with Bo Nix, but it's tough. Cooper Rush. I don't know if there's any way I could start Cooper Rush in the semifinals and feel good about it, but Tampa is about as good as it gets whenever it comes to a matchup for your fantasy quarterback, and they have the Bucks and Dallas game has the highest over under of any of the quarterbacks in any of these games. So it's like there's that possibility there, but I just don't with what Bo Nix has put on the field so far. And I haven't been a Bo Nix guy. I've had to kind of come around on that. I was not a Bo Nix believer. Even once he was playing well to start the season, I was still very, very doubtful of it. But I think with how he's played this year, I would struggle to put Cooper Rush in and then watch Bo Nix play well on my bench and Cooper Rush just do Cooper Rush things despite the over-under and despite how good the matchup is against Tampa. I just don't know if I would trust it. So I would go Bo Nix, and then I think I would even surpass, if you didn't want to go Nix, I would even surpass Cooper Rush and everything I just said about him, and I would go with Drake May, like Rich said.
I think the easy answer is that none of us are in favor of Geno Smith from the fact that he may not even play. Could be Sam Howell. It's definitely going to be in that order, and it is. I look at the same thing you guys just said. Cooper Rush, matchup wise, I think is the best matchup for him just to exploit. Drake May's in the best situation to have a battle back and forth. Bo Nix probably gives you the best chance for a steady floor between his legs and his arm. And so it's going to be tricky. That, like I said, I think that quarterback position is going to be one, and that it's a good enough segue into the news and notes of the evening, is because most of these revolve around the quarterback position. Albert always quarterbacks the chat when it comes to Thursday nights. Good to see you. Speaking of quarterbacks, guys, Kansas City, yes, Susie does suck, but it's not because they lack grit, intestinal fortitude, moxie. Pat Mahomes, full participant, practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. Me personally, guys, I hate it. I don't want him to play. I don't want him to play. The quick turnaround to Christmas Day just seems like he'll be running for his life both Saturday and then potentially in the bounce back, quick turnaround game against Pittsburgh to go to pass rush. Does that move the needle on any of the players on Kansas City, considerably, Rich, from going from Mahomes to Wentz, or is their lack of offensive firepower kind of still muted a little bit with Wentz?
Right. I think that honestly, the way that I'm looking at it, and this might be the wrong way to look at it, but I'm just remembering. I think it was last year. We were just talking about this. I believe it was last year. Was Blaine Gabbert, right?
Mm-hmm.
He played a couple of games, and in those games, the receivers, they didn't have great games, but they did all right. I think that there's going to be a drop off, obviously, going to Carson Wentz, but I think that Carson Wentz is good enough where he'll be able to at least make some plays down the field and whatnot. So I'm not. It doesn't move the needle too much for me, but I mean, obviously, it's not Patrick Mahomes, so yeah, it's got to drop a little bit.
Yeah, the couple of the other starting quarterback scenarios that have been changed. Kirk Cousins is finally relegated out of the captain seat. Now Michael Penix Jr. is jumping straight in. Drew, I'll talk a little bit later about some of the impacts I think it's going to have, but ultimately, massive decrease towards the playmakers in Atlanta, massive increase, or similar to Kansas City, probably a lateral move considering the quote unquote ineptitude that Cousins has shown over the last month or so.
Because of that ineptitude, I think it's a possible slight increase or maybe just a lateral move. But I have a little bit of hopium that, because I am a Drake London guy, that hopefully this will rejuvenate the offense. I liked Michael Penix a little bit in the draft season. I wasn't like the biggest fan. I thought that he was cleared behind the top three quarterbacks, Caleb, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. But I thought that he was better than Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy. So he was kind of right there in the middle. But then now whenever you watch the receivers that he threw to in college, between Odunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, they've all had their fair set of struggles in their rookie years. If you look at their yard per route run across the board, and granted, they're all in their own separate situations down in the NFL, and there's factors to consider with that. But it's like maybe Penix didn't get enough credit for what he did to lift those guys up in college. Maybe he is a little bit better than I was giving him credit for, with how good those guys looked as prospects, and then how they've kind of all underwhelmed in a sense in their rookie season. So I've got a little bit of hope. I hope it uplifts the offense a little bit, because these last few weeks, man, it's just been brutal to watch. I can't imagine how Keith sets through a Falcons game every single week. The last
probably with a lot of that hopium that you're talking about, just in different form, and it just means that Bijan, in my eyes, is another league winning. I mean,
oh my God, he's about to crush.
Great. I won't say this has crushed the hopes of Tennessee fans, is that Mason Rudolph's starting over Will Levis. I don't think it moves the needle too much for me. If either one of you guys disagree and you think that someone's an uptick, Mason Rudolph's there. In Cleveland, this one is probably the most shocking, just because who cares? Why do you care so much? But DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, stepping in for Jameis Winston. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, I think that's the biggest hit to both Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, across the board, right? I mean, I think Jerry Jeudy will be a very common, what do I do with he was a wide, there's a lot of teams that probably have Jerry Jeudy in the fantasy playoffs because him as a wide receiver 3 that you got, right there. Show a hand. Well, maybe we'll ask you here in a little bit, maybe you have a question for us or for everybody else to answer what to do with Jerry Jeudy. And then David Montgomery out for the season is a killer. A lot of teams probably have Montgomery as well. Jahmyr Gibbs to the moon. I think we all pretty much can agree in that, and that his workload. Craig Reynolds is someone that either one of you guys picked up just in case, or is it? I didn't think so. Right? Good.
No, because he's not the guy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that at the end of the show.
Just bringing up a name when you look at some depth charts. I get it. And then Geno Smith, full participant in practice today. I don't really. We've already talked on Geno Smith, but you're
probably not starting Geno, but it would have an effect on like JSN and DK. Yeah. There's no way in hell I'm starting. Or I say starting. I don't want to come off too strong. I will not feel near as good if I have to watch Sam Howell play quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks if I'm starting any of Seattle's pass catchers. It's not as bad of a downgrade as DTR. I think that one just really annoys me. And just the fact that Jameis was about to do some incredible things against that Cincinnati Swiss cheese defense. Like, he was going to go nuts this weekend, and we have now been robbed of that because Cleveland, for some reason, thinks that they need just another confirmation that DTR isn't the guy. I don't know how they haven't gotten that up to this point and why they have to make us suffer for them to be able to confirm that. But so it's not quite as bad as that to me. But if Geno doesn't play, I would feel much worse about Jason and DK.
Right. The selfish part, you know what? The only positive that having DTR in is for my heavy Chase Brown ownership is that I don't expect Cleveland to be able to keep the game competitive, and Cincinnati should be able to just completely control the game on the ground and increase his volume somehow, if that's even possible, considering how good he has been. Here, before we jump into the next segment, which is going to be our smash plays of the game. Dale is eliminated from the playoffs. He likes to compete. I love, respect that.
I love that. Yep.
All things out. Being said, this one kills me, Dale. If you've happened to see any of our work or followed from the get-go, I was Kamara was my guy from the beginning of the year, and he's on a lot of my teams that luckily are still in the playoffs. And if Kamara's out, that adductor muscle, the groin injury right there, should you play Kendre Miller or CEH? And coming down to Monday, Drew and I were talking about this a little bit off show, Rich. It's hard to really hold pat, but if you have Kendre Miller or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, are you consensus that, are you comfortable starting Kendre Miller first and foremost? And it's not CEH over Kendre Miller, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I'm taking Kendre Miller out of the two of them. I just got done talking about how Kendre Miller is a stash of mine, a deep stash in Dynasty. And so I do think that he is somebody that if Kamara doesn't go, I think he showed last week, he had just under 5 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
He looked pretty good last week. So I think that he has a good chance of producing this week again.
And I just want to say I really appreciate the fact that you still care and you're still trying to set your lineup, because I'm the same way even whenever I'm eliminated from the playoffs. And I hate whenever I get it, but I hate whenever I'm looking at who I'm playing against in the consolation bracket and they've got like 2 guys that are ruled out, a guy on IR in the lineup. And the matchup might not win anything, but set your lineup, man. I still want to beat you fair and square. I don't care what bracket we're in. So I appreciate Dale's approach here. But yeah, I agree. I think it's Kendre Miller. I'm actually, if I feel bad for you, Nate, but if Kamara can't go, I'm actually excited to see what Kendre Miller can do. Yeah.
The War Clouds, good evening. Jaden Daniels against that Eagles defense.
Oh, yeah.
Or Kyler, who, let's be honest, has been pretty much a bit. So Kyler and the best matchup you could possibly want next to maybe Jacksonville against Carolina, or Jaden Daniels, the person who most likely, who definitely in drafts, if you took both of those two, it was with I don't know if it was the hopes this would happen, but it was the idea that maybe this could, if Kyler who was super hyped going into drafts, just in case, get Jaden Daniels, and now you have to push aside the guy. Maybe I'll let you guys tell me, Jaden or Kyler. Rich?
Man, this one's really tough. I actually do have Jaden and Kyler in a couple of leagues together in one quarterback leagues, and I've been struggling with this all week. And I still don't have an answer. I have a coin around here that I got from it's a nice size coin that says starter sit, and that's probably what I'm going to be using on this. If I had to go with how I actually feel, though, I don't know how you sit Jaden Daniels, like with how well he's played this year and everything. I probably am still starting him and watching the ship go down. I'm the violinist on the Titanic.
Yeah, I've got these 2 guys literally back to back. I've got Jaden Daniels at QB6 and Kyler at QB7 this week. But I'm worried for Daniels. I mean, these 2 teams played in week 11. The last time he played Philly, granted it was in Philly, but the last time he played Philly, he was the quarterback 24 on the week. Yep. And so there's some serious downside that could come with playing this Philly defense. So if I was doing it, I would probably look at it. if I'm the favorite and I'm looking to play it safe, I'd probably roll with Daniels. If you think you're going to need upside in your matchup, if you're the underdog, I would probably go with Kyler. Which is kind of a cop-out answer, but that's honestly how I would look at it if it was my team, because I have these guys back-to-back. Kyler hasn't played near as well as Jaden Daniels, but God, the matchup is miles better, though. But there's also a world where James Conner just runs for 150 yards and a couple touchdowns, and Kyler doesn't really have to do much. So It's not like Kyler's just guaranteed to smash because he has a good matchup, because Carolina also can't stop the run. So it's really tough, man, but that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I hate it. I'm in the same dilemma. I feel you guys. Mr. Magic
Mike. I wonder if his name's Mike.
We'll call Mike.
Appreciate you joining us, though.
Yeah.
Charlene. I mean, always.
Also doesn't feel good about Gino. Yep. Get that.
No, I wouldn't either. Here you guys go. Mr. Magic wants to know if Kenneth Walker misses again, which two of these do you like? Charbonnet, Keenan Allen, Devontae Smith. We'll say it's a full point PPR just for consideration.
Definitely Devontae Smith.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna go Charb and Keenan just because I really like what Keenan and Caleb Williams have been doing together the last few weeks. They really seem to have been getting that chemistry together very well, and so I like them working together. And I like Charb. I liked him coming out, and he has looked really, really good filling in for Walker. So if Walker misses again, I feel like he's got to be the one.
I agree with you on Charb. I would go Devontae over Keenan personally. Even though I mean they're the Bears, they're playing Detroit. Very, very decent possibility that game ends up shooting out. So there's could be a lot of fantasy points to go around, but I would personally go Devontae over Keenan. But it is close, so I see why you would be struggling with this one.
Yeah, the only separator is like if it is a full point, I think Keenan's value is higher, because I mean the targets have been there. It's just Caleb and company. I think I heard the stat, and you guys tell me this is you heard the same thing. They've over the last I'm just gonna say X amount of weeks because I don't want to get it wrong. They've been outscored 52-0 in the first half.
Jeez.
They haven't scored in the first half in like the last 5 weeks or something. And so he's stockpiling all these targets and receptions with very little overall like yardage, and then Keenan Allen needs to get in the end zone. So I think we're all in agreement. It's Charbonnet, and then choose your destiny between Devontae Smith and Keenan Allen. I think I lead Devontae just a little bit because it wouldn't shock me to see Caleb Williams and company struggle again. But man, he looked good about 5 weeks. That Hail Mary, the Hail Mary game, ever since that damn throw, he has
man,
like he used all of his
got snatched.
Yeah, the Angels in the outfield came in and they're like, you only get one. You only get one. Sorry, guys. Jelly of the month, good evening. Drop Kate Otten for Brenton Strange. Yeah, Kate Otten has not been great with Mike Evans back. Brenton Strange has basically taken on the Evan Ingram role. Drew, we'll start with you. Are you dropping Kate Otten in that high upside matchup that you talked about earlier for the Jacksonville Jaguars and Brenton Strange?
I would. And I will say that you should keep listening for a little bit, because we're going to get to smash or pass here in a little while. And, spoiler alert, I looked ahead at the show sheet, and Rich might be talking about why Brenton Strange is a smash here shortly. So stay tuned I'll leave it at that. Stay tuned for that. But in short, I would pick up Strange to play him over Otten this week.
There you go.
Yep.
And one final question before we jump into the next one. And it's a comment more than anything. And that's true. I think Daniel's hurt last time they played Philly. He got banged up. He still, I think he had 32 32 pass attempts in that game. So I think he had the rib injury at the time. I think that was going into it.
It says he played 100% of snaps. So he might have been banged up, but I mean, he was out there for the full piece of the game. But yeah, I can't remember because it was week 11. But if he wasn't fully healthy, I'm sure that certainly affected his play.
Pretty sure it was the ribs that he had been battling. But then again, I'm not 100%. But here's one: Justin Herbert, Geno Smith. I think that probably collectively we're saying Justin Herbert, even though against Denver. What's Pat Surtain's scenario? Because he got banged up in the game. is he even a scenario? And any mispractice or anything, or is he good to go?
Pat Surtain was a full participant today or yesterday.
Okay.
Sorry.
Does that matter? Do you still lean Herbert over Geno?
I would still go Herbert because, I mean, there's not necessarily like – I don't know if Ladd would be matched up against Surtain very often, and that that seems to be like his go-to guy. Like, so I'm not really worried. Like, there's not a guy that I'm going to be like, oh, if Surtain takes this guy out of the game on the outside, Herbert can't have a good game,
Right.
And
QJ takes himself out of the game.
yeah, he's that good enough on his own. He doesn't need any help. So yeah, no, I would still go Herbert, especially with Geno already banged up. I would go Herbert.
Gotcha. Let's the odds of Kamara playing are very low, right? Personally, yes. You sign the guy to a contract extension. Groin injuries are bad. You're going to Green Bay. It's cold. Everything just leans towards I wouldn't play him. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm allergic to Alvin Kamara being hurt.
So we got some more people joining us. The comments are rolling tonight. You can tell that it's the fantasy playoffs, man. People are tuned in. We appreciate it. Which I say that, but these guys are regulars and regular supporters, guys. We appreciate Robert, the real and only Robert Thomas. Please stand up. Is back in the back in the building, and then Mr. Scampers. I just want to let you know, Scampers, Fourth and Frames Listener League, your ass is grass in the consolation bracket, buddy. You are mine this week. He did confirm Surtain off the injury report. And then the one and only Robert Thomas has a question. He needs us to sit one of these quarterbacks. So Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, Nate, you've been throwing questions around to everybody else all night, so I'm going to make you answer this one first.
I'm sitting Caleb. I think that 5 weeks ago, if you asked me this question, there was no way I was ever going to say it was going to be Aaron Rodgers, but he's been a QB1 over the last few weeks now. We've seen him and Devontae Adams really establish the rapport that we expected them to have. And this is it feels like, I know this is crazy, but Aaron Rodgers is the type of petty motherfucker that is trying to go out there and throw for 350 and 3 to be able to tell
Ryan. And the good news is for him is the Rams defense will let him do it.
They will. Right. And he can punk Ryan Clark. And that's like the one thing I think that's his motivation. And he still has the talent to be able to do so. And Breece Hall, and between Breece and Braylon, effectively on the ground doesn't exist. And so I think he throws 45 times, and I could see 350 and 2 or 3. I actually have Aaron Rodgers as a firm QB1 on the week. So yeah.
I'm with you. Yep. It's wild that we got here. And this is why I appreciate Scampers, because even though we're in the consolation bracket, it's going to be a dogfight. He ain't leaving no people on IR or ruled out in his lineup. We're gonna earn this consolation win. So I appreciate that. I think this might be the week McBride gets a touchdown. Kyler even came out and said, like, hey, don't worry, we're getting McBride in the end zone. And I mean, God, talk about like the positive regression of all time at this point. Like the dude is due like 6 touchdowns. So
exactly.
it's coming. It's coming.
All in the same game.
Yeah, all of them in one game. Yeah.
So going back to the Jaden or Kyler question, probably start Kyler if you think that he's going to throw 6 touchdowns. Trey McBride. That's on you. Exactly. Jelly of the Month says thanks. He's going to flex Charbonnet, and it is full point PPR, assuming that Kenneth Walker's out. However, let's say Kenneth Walker does play. If he were to grab Jerome Ford or Tajay Spears off waivers tonight, because he's finally dropping bust of the year Jalen Waddle, is Jerome Ward or Tajay Spears worth maybe putting in over, say, Charbonnet?
More spoiler alert. If you stay tuned, we are eventually going to get to smash or pass. It's going to happen.
Yes.
And whenever we do, Nate might have a piece for you why he calls Jerome Ford a smash this week. So
there you go.
Right.
And no
just
need
a little
to
bit. Another spoiler alert.
Well, last week's smash of Sincere McCormick didn't really work out, so maybe
I'll have to talk about that. That guy, he got hurt, man. It ain't your fault.
The one thing that I would say for Jelly of the Month, looking at Jerome Ford or Spears, I would say this is the one time that I'd be playing defense, and I'd be picking up Jerome Ford either way.
Yeah. Yeah,
like, absolutely.
I don't want anybody else to have him.
Yeah, I don't want to play against him this week. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yep, absolutely,
exactly right. And then this will be the last one, and we'll jump into the next one. Robert Thomas asks, you start one in a full point PPR, Tyrone Tracy or Kendre Miller?
Where are the Giants playing again?
They play Atlanta. It's a tough matchup for running backs.
Mm-hmm. I still think I played Tyrone Tracy.
If we're working under the assumption that Kamara isn't playing, I would play Kendre Miller.
That's what, yeah. If Kamara doesn't play, I'm sticking with my gut and my calls that I've had.
They've been giving Singletary this weird goal line work lately, and it just and then it's a tough matchup on top of that. I don't know. I'm a little worried for Tracy this week, honestly.
It all, like, the two are so close to one another in terms of matchup that if I start peeling apart, the layers of the onion, it's like I look at quarterback and I worry about Jake Hayner and I worry about the Saints as a whole being just
that's true.
Unlikely to score. And I actually like Drew Lock running that offense a little bit more than I do with Tommy DeVito. But again, Kendre Miller could see 6 targets, 7 targets. And if that's the case, Tyrone Tracy could as well, but more likely Miller. So, I mean, Miller, what do you say, Rich?
I'm Miller. I'm sticking with my call. I'm going with Miller.
And I'll make sure that that we'll stay in camaraderie together. And I'll say Miller's a fine choice. I don't have a problem. If I disagreed with that,
why don't you just tell us why you hate Kendre Miller?
Because he sucks. That's why. He's terrible. He's not. He doesn't really suck. I
didn't realize Nate Markham left and Dennis Allen came on our show.
Right. That's what I was just gonna say. You and Dennis Allen, like best friends. You both got something against Kendre Miller going on.
I have
the backstory of why Dennis Allen hates him.
Well, he probably knew that Kamara was my guy, and I was going to have him on multiple different teams that were going to be competing for thousands of dollars, and Kendre Miller didn't cause any of this, but if he's playing and he's successful by proxy, that means that I am not getting closer to a fantasy football championship. But as you guys get closer to a fantasy football championship, what better way to capture your victory and immortality than by getting your own Dynasty Deck Championship plaque? Yes, Dynasty Decks or thedynastydex.com provide fully customizable championship plaques for any fantasy football league, whether on offense or IDP. If you use the promo code FRAMES, you'll receive $5 off the purchase price, which is very affordable compared to other market prices on other websites. Head over to thedynastydex.com today and immortalize your fantasy championship that hopefully does not have Kendre Miller on it. All right, guys. That's what everybody came to. Well, probably they didn't. They probably came to chat and do what we've been doing. But you're going to get our smash plays anyway.
There's some questions that we haven't answered yet. Just stay tuned. I promise we'll get to them. We've got them starred. We haven't forgot about you, so just hang out with us.
And we will do our best to try to – I don't want to eclipse the stats and the reason behind it, but maybe I'll shorten some of the reasons why and just give you some of these names so that we can answer some more questions. But again, the smash plays – the way we're figuring this out, if you're new to the show or you've been listening, you forget like I do every single week, is that these are players outside the top 20 at wide receiver, 15 running back, top 8 tight end, top 12 at quarterback, according to the Fantasy Pros Week 16 expert consensus rankings. Smash play number 1. Rich, smash it up.
All right, so number 1, we're going to go with my guy. And I know it's kind of weird saying my guy, but you know what? I like Travis Etienne. I do. And I was really shocked by the way things have played out the last couple of years. But he kind of seems like he might be taking back over that spot there. He's to start off with, he's Pro Football Focus's 46 running back, but he's just outside the top 20 in receiving score. And I think that's one of the big things that separates him with Tank Bigsby is he's actually a more all-around back. And Tank Bigsby hasn't really produced much the last outside of weeks 5 and 7 this year. He's averaging about 3.6 yards per carry over the last 5 full games. I took out the game where he got injured. Was saved by a touchdown in week 14 against the Titans to at least get over the 10-point mark. And the last 2 weeks, his snap percentage has gone down from 53% to 26%, whereas Etienne's has gone from 47% up to 73%. So he's kind of the hot hand right now. He's the better all-around back. That's my guy.
And that matchup this week is beautiful.
Yeah.
If he plays 70+% of the snaps against Vegas, yeah, sign me up. He's gonna perform better than where he's ranked right now in the ECR.
Absolutely. And Vegas without Max Crosby is a different defensive line unit altogether. I mean, Christian Wilkins
That's a good point.
is nice. They just, when you lose a piece like that, it collectively, the morale across that defense, I assume this isn't one of those, we get a step up for Max. I think they're just kind of defeated at this point now.
Yeah.
And speaking of defeated, I don't know what this offense is going to look like, if they're going to be defeated or they're going to come out and try to rally around DTR. But the Cleveland Browns are without Nick Chubb, and Jerome Ford's going to step in. And Jerome Ford at Cincinnati, I think, is one of those really, really good situations. It's a blend of opportunity. The matchup is still good against Cincinnati. Do I think that Cleveland will keep pace with them? No, but that's the nice thing about Jerome Ford. You don't have to play from ahead or behind for someone with his abilities, both, as a 3-down potential back, to see a baseline floor. Bengals, they allow the 16. They've allowed 16% target share to the running back while leading. So I think that's what the game script's going to look like. Cleveland's going to be behind. They're going to target Jerome Ford. He hasn't been as heavily targeted by comparison on a target percentage basis because he's ran so many routes, but he's still one of the most targeted running backs. And in this situation where you don't have Chubb, I think that will continue. The Bengals, again, as it run funnel, if you want to, the third highest explosive run rate. We saw that explosive run rate by Jerome Ford. Good God. I watched it last week against Kansas City, and guess who now? Who has the most rushing yards of any running back against Kansas City all year? Jerome Ford. Again, 62-yard touchdown run probably makes that look a little bit better. But is it an outlier? Sure, but it's notable because that's an opportunity that Jerome Ford has. I think the baseline's there. He's going to be involved in that offense. It might not be the most explosive offense, but you're at this point, there's enough injuries across the running back and uncertainty, a la Alvin Kamara. Jerome Ford's a good play. And like you guys said earlier, pick him up, and he's a smash pickup if he's on the waiver wire because you don't want someone else to have him in this matchup.
Yeah, he's literally the only guy I'm excited to start for the Browns this week because the Browns ruined everything else. They ruined my happiness. They ruined Jerry Jeudy. They ruined David Njoku. They ruined everything except for Jerome Ford.
There you go.
Have I mentioned that I'm really annoyed Jameis Winston isn't playing in this matchup against Cincinnati's defense yet? Because I'm really annoyed Jameis Winston isn't playing in this matchup this week.
So what you're saying is DTR is not your smash play?
He is not my smash play. Nope. I almost went there, but instead I decided to go with Tony Pollard. So we got to keep an eye on the practice reports to make sure that the ankle injury he's dealing with doesn't keep him off the field. But if he does play, I love Pollard this week. Before we talk about the matchup, which is great, let's just talk about how solid Pollard's been so far. Among running backs with at least 50 rush attempts on the year, he's 10th in rushing yards per game. He's 6th in yards after contact per attempt, and he is somehow averaging over 4 yards per carry despite playing in that piss poor offense all year, which might have actually gotten a slight upgrade with Will Levis being benched. It's weird to say that about Mason Rudolph, but that's how rough the Titans offense has looked lately. So, and that pains me to say. I'm a Kentucky guy. I'm a Kentucky fan. I wanted Will Levis to succeed, but my God, man, it's been brutal. So Pollard gets a matchup against the Colts that's been a run funnel lately. They've been a tough matchup for quarterbacks and receivers, but over the last 6 weeks, the Colts have been the 9th best matchup whenever you look at fantasy points above expectation to the running back position. And I'm not sure if you guys believe in incentive narratives, but personally, I do. I'm a big incentive guy. I believe that players and coaches are aware of these whenever guys are approaching these monetary incentives that they have built into the contracts. And Pollard, he's one of those guys to keep an eye on. He needs 2 more touchdowns for $200K and 118 more rushing yards for another $250K. So he's sitting on almost $500,000 in incentives for 118 rushing yards and 2 more touchdowns. So in a matchup like this, assuming he's healthy, I would imagine he's going to make up some ground on those incentives. And It might just be the question marks around the injury that has Pollard where he is. But right now, the Fantasy Pros Week 16 expert consensus rankings has him at running back 22. Assuming he's healthy, assuming he plays this week, he's going to be my running back 16. And I might end up moving him up even higher. So he's a smash play for me this week.
Yeah, nothing like resting on the financial backing of a team that let AJ Brown go because they didn't want to pay him a contract, and banking on Tony Pollard's incentives to be kicked in, and them wanting to flex on that. No concerns whatsoever. Actually, that is something I do take into account, is those incentives. It builds good team camaraderie. It shows that they're dedicated to their team. I don't think this is quite the exact same scenario for you, Rich, but I think opportunity is one of those other things that's a real big motivator. And I think your smash play number 2 is probably opportunity laden.
Yeah, it's all about the opportunity. I mean, we saw it with how he filled in last week with Brenton Strange stepping in for Evan Ingram. He had 11 catches on 12 targets for 73 yards. He was tight end 2 with 18.3 points. And honestly, this is going to be real short and simple. I mean, he's just an easy plug and play. Las Vegas is giving up the 4th most points to tight ends. So he's got a decent matchup. From what he's shown already, I don't know how you're not playing Brenton Strange. So yeah, to answer that question earlier from earlier on tonight, Brenton Strange is my guy for sure.
Yeah, he's filled the Evan Ingram role, and if you can get me to fill a role like that with limited, I'll tell you what, sure, you're going to be watching that Jacksonville game on pins and needles. Oh man! Every time Brian Thomas Jr. touches the ball, you're going to hear a collective "fuck" from nothing like the Mac Jones led offense to carry into your fantasy championship. But
I like Strange too. He's a tight end 1 for me this week. And as strange as that is to say, pun intended, I think if you're in a 12-team league, Brenton Strange should absolutely be started this week.
Yeah, my smash is not one that I would say is for the weak-hearted, because this is definitely one of those situations where it needs to be dependent upon probably deeper leagues, but I like doing some of the deeper league cuts because we don't know. People could be watching doing, 8-man leagues. Maybe there's some 14-team leagues out there, but right now, Malik Washington is in one of the best, I would say, waiver opportunities, especially if you're shallow at wide receiver. Jalen Waddle is no longer going to haunt your week-to-week lineups that you have to worry about if Tua and Waddle can connect, and the upsides there. Malik Washington is filling into an offense that, despite their shortcomings, which is they have played a little bit slower, they're not as quite dynamic as we had expected Miami to be going in, but he occupies a role that, if last week was an indicator, the 6 targets I think is definitely replicatable. Will he catch 5 for 52? Does he get in the end zone? Those questions, obviously, that will help catapult that number, but he was a wide receiver 37 in full point PPR. If you threw into a touchdown, he's now a wide receiver 2 on that. I don't want to say ifs and buts, but it is Christmas season. So, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all be fantasy champions is the new one that we're going to start saying. But I do think that if you're in the deeper leagues, thanks. Appreciate that. Just came up with that. Can you believe it? On top of my old dome. But yeah, I wouldn't drop any of these, the aforementioned, like Drew, maybe your smash. I wouldn't not play him for Malik Washington, but definitely a name to monitor in deeper leagues.
Yeah, I agree. I think in deep leagues you can do much worse. And I think, Rich, was that one of the guys you guys talked about on Dynasty 365 today? Wasn't that one of the ones that Jorge talked about as well? So it's a fantasy and frames favorite across the board. So I like that. And it's good to know that you wouldn't start him over this guy, because I'm kind of excited about it. And it's always dangerous. It's a dangerous game that you're playing, trying to figure out which Packers pass catcher is the one that you want to start for fantasy on a weekly basis. And call me crazy, but Christian Watson, he's the guy that I had my eyes on this week. The Saints have been the 9th best matchup for receivers based on fantasy points above expectation over the last 6 weeks. And they've also given up the 4th highest amount of fantasy points per game to receivers that line up out wide during that same 6-week time frame. And lucky for us, Watson is lined up out wide on over 70% of his snaps this year. So he's in a prime spot. And look, if you spend any time looking around in the fantasy points data suite, which if you don't already, you should check it out because it is just a great resource, but it makes it even more difficult not to be excited about Watson. If you look at expected fantasy points per route run, which basically tells you the kind of efficiency that you can expect on a weekly basis, and it adjusts for a player's actual fantasy points per route run based on the matchup that they have for the week. Watson has the 14th highest expected fantasy points per route run on the week based on his matchup among pass catchers. He's lined up to smash. And then on top of that, Watson is 3rd among pass catchers in average separation score, otherwise known as ASS. His separation has not been ASS; it's been great. And that he's been playing. The box score doesn't always show it, but he's been playing well. He's been separating. The matchup is lining up really well for him. So among all Packers receivers, he's the one that I have ranked the highest this week. I have him over Jaden Reed. I have him over Romeo Doubs. I think he even out-targeted Romeo Doubs last week, but Doubs got the touchdown. So for fantasy, we didn't care. But considering the matchup and considering the way Watson's played and how things are setting up, he's a smash play for me this week.
There you go. So to wrap up these smashes, we're smashing Travis Etienne, Jerome Ford, and Tony Pollard, in addition to Brenton Strange, Malik Washington, and Christian Watson. Before we jump into our pass plays, let's get a couple more questions answered for everybody listening. Anthony, good evening. Wants to know, between these three in a full point PPR, Rico Dowdle, Khalil Shakir, or Adam Thielen? Rich, you're smiling because I think you know the answer, or you play against Anthony and you don't know the right answer.
Right. No, I'm smiling just because it was making me think about the 365 show. We were just talking about how there was a trade that went down in the playoffs. We don't have a trade deadline, and the Christian McCaffrey owner traded Christian McCaffrey for Dowdle straight up.
Oh, okay.
That's about how
right?
And so I was just,
if it is a huge payout, I still hate it. But if it's financially that beneficial, are you guys in belief that flags fly forever and you'll take the cash instead of future considerations of the separation between Dowdle and CMC? I apologize for not listening because you probably answered that on the Dynasty 365 show.
Yeah, I'm all about get your name on the plaque if you're almost there. Like we made the good argument about maybe if this was next week and you're in the championship versus being in the semifinals.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that God.
But yeah. So
well, what's the answer here for you guys? Is it Dowdle?
This one. For me it's Shakir.
Okay, same here.
Yeah, that's where I lean as well. The matchup for we've known Tampa over the years. They've always been a really tough run defense until this year, at least early this year. But then now you look at like the last 6 weeks, they've been a really tough run defense, but they can't stop anybody whenever it comes to the pass. So it's hard to argue against Dowdle and the volume that he's seen recently. But I'm with both of you guys. I think it's Shakir.
Yep, exactly. Dale says, so I think maybe he heard us talking a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Bo Nix or Aaron Rodgers? He was going to start the Golden Bow. I'm leaning Rodgers, but you guys may say Bo, and I don't blame you for doing so. But I'm buying into Aaron Rodgers somehow being a fantasy. It sucks so bad because that's all we're going to remember is the teams that win are going to think of the positives for Aaron Rodgers, not the 14 weeks of garbage that he gave, 12 weeks of garbage he gave us prior.
Right. Yeah. I think this is a really tough one for me. I think I'm going with Bo Nix and his legs, and I'm hoping that he can get me a little bit extra there on the ground. I'm going Bo Nix.
If you get 6 points per passing touchdown, I'd go Rodgers. If it's 4 points per passing touchdown, I'd go Bo Nix.
Gotcha. Yep. All right, if Njoku is out, which I
This is gross, man.
Yeah.
This is gross.
Gesicki, who, when all the other weapons have been there, hasn't exactly been
done anything.
The Gesicki when one of them's missing, or well, at least when Higgins is gone. Or Juwan Johnson, who has glamour shots, Jake Haener throwing him the ball.
Yeah, it's like a third-string quarterback throwing him the ball.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm hoping Gesicki gets a touchdown. I'm going Gesicki, I guess.
I probably played the matchup and go Juwan Johnson. Green Bay hasn't been very good against tight ends, but I don't think there's I think you need to like pray to whatever God you pray to, or if you don't pray to one, you might want to find one and just hope that David Njoku plays this week.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's rough, man. That's rough.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got – this is a two-piece because he said need one, maybe two for flex if Kamara doesn't play. Nate, you're going to be very familiar with this one because this guy's actually playing you, and I believe this is for his lineup.
Is it really?
The fourth and frames listener.
Well, the answer is Thielen and Downs in all day long. Super smash play, QK.
But then he listened to the smash segment, and he said, answered it on Smash Pass. Pollard Ford is, here's to beating Nate and making my playoff record 2-0 versus those because he beat Jorge last week in the listener league, and so now you guys are playing each other. So, I'm just full disclosure, I'm fully rooting for Quentin to beat your ass this week. So, Pollard Ford, it is indeed. We got a defense question, and so hey, just heads up. Shoot the Gap is following us, our RDP show. So not only team DST, but just they can get real in depth. If you guys need any IDP help, be sure to be on the lookout for that. But
not to interrupt you, but I have been saying Jake Haener, and it's Spencer Rattler. Is
Rattler playing?
Like if Jelly,
it's tomato. Like they both suck. But
then again, Sam Howell's probably maybe not playing either. So I mean, who in this case, let's say it's either or scenarios. And Ruguru says Rattler might be getting the start this week for the Saints. It's a better play for the pass catchers than Nola, which, Ruguru, first and foremost, welcome to the show.
Good to see you.
Love you, buddy. We hope you're doing awesome. And
absolutely.
I don't know how much of an improvement, but either way, let's go back to the defense question. You guys answer that. Defensive scoring, Minnesota, heavy pass rush, blitz heavy, or Green Bay against just an inept New Orleans team. No offense, Ruguru and other New Orleans fans, but I'm taking Green Bay.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument that Green Bay should be the number one defense on the week, but then you could also make the argument that if Geno doesn't play, Minnesota could be number one and number two as well. So and this is the one where I don't think you can go wrong. If it seems like Geno is trending on playing this week, and if that's the case, then I think that you go with Green Bay. But either way, I think Green Bay is the right choice.
Yeah, I'm going to say if Geno plays, then I'm going Green Bay. But if Sam Howell plays, I'm counting on that Minnesota defense getting a turnover or two, just because they have been almost every single game. Yeah. So, Yep.
All right, Daniel. Daniel needs help, guys.
Help.
PPR league. Got a flex one. Let's start with this flex right here, Rich. Jacoby Myers, Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard. So for context, he's facing a team with Brock Bowers, Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, Trey McBride. He does have Lamar, Nico, CD, Mixon,
he's got a good
Strange, team. And this just looks like, at this point, given an even battle, I'm still probably going to be saying the same answer as I still think I lean Pollard over Dowdle and over Jacoby Myers myself. If Aiden O'Connell was playing, I'd feel better about Jacoby. But
right.
Yeah, and there is a chance that O'Connell plays this week. I don't think it's guaranteed yet, but I think I saw something that they said that there was a chance he plays. But I don't think that even if he plays, I don't think I would play him over Dowdle or Pollard. I just called Pollard my special. It would be crazy not to say Pollard. I've got him and Dowdle close though. But if Pollard plays, if he's healthy, and it seems like he's going to, I would go Pollard.
Yep, I'm with you there, 100%. Yeah.
Good luck, Daniel. And Dale adds in the potentially injured Strange. Like he points out in the second comment, it was AC joint. I don't think it's at risk of missing time, but even like say the banged up re-injury,
Yeah, you have to worry about these
pain tolerance is a pivot or a replacement with Stone Smart, a smart play over Brenton Strange.
I'm loving all these puns.
Yeah, very good.
I think I'm sticking with my smash play and going with Strange still. I think that
I agree.
Just the way that offense runs with the tight end being such a key part of it.
Yep,
I'm wanting that.
Exactly. Ruguru wants to know, he's trying to validate playing Breece Hall in his flex. I get that.
Raise your hand if you thought you would be saying that in week 16 of this season.
And raise your other hand if you thought that Darnell Mooney, Tyrone Tracy, or Ladd McConkey shouldn't have been in the conversation 16 weeks ago. But here's a scenario. Do you put Ladd in? Do you put Darnell Mooney, Tyrone Tracy? The only person of those three that I could even justify would be Ladd McConkey. And that's because Mooney with Penix, I don't necessarily trust, especially after the goose egg last week. And Tyrone Tracy, we know the matchup. So are we all in agreement it's McConkey? Or are we in agreement that if any of them, it's McConkey, right?
Yeah, if it's not Breece, it's McConkey. I think I still go Breece. But it's such a strange world we're living in that you even have to ask the question. But I get why you're asking the question, though.
100%.
But I would still go Breece. But if you just can't find it in your heart of hearts to play Breece, I think McConkey's the pivot.
There you go.
Yep, I'm with you.
Well, and of course, flattery gets you everywhere. You guys the wordplay tonight. Great show. Thank you. It's
the sickles are easily amused. The sickles are easily amused.
Good. That's my target audience.
Absolutely.
The easily amused and the short-term memory loss group. That's my key demographics that I can shoot for. And so obviously we're getting close to the end, but we do want to give a couple of our, past plays to go through. We'll try this to touch some names and then maybe just add one little point of why some are maybe obvious, others aren't. Rich, your first pass is, I think, an obvious one. I'll let you tell everybody why.
My first pass is Jerry Jeudy, and it's for the same reason why Drew is so god darn frustrated. Like, I'm right there with you. The fact that it's Dorian Thompson Robinson, I'm out. Pass.
He would have been a smash this week.
He would have been. Oh, I'm a huge Jeudy fan. I love Jerry Jeudy, and so this slight resurgence that I've seen has been great, and then this Anyways, sorry. Continue.
No, we all share an agreement. And my pass is a player who I'm a big fan. I really like Joe Mixon. I don't like Joe Mixon against the Chiefs. I don't like Joe Mixon in a scenario where I heard the fantasy footballers even bring it up as a scenario where Houston has no real reason to play. He had already been banged up a little bit last week, came back in the previous time he re-aggravated an injury. And all those things, just why? If you're Houston, why play Mixon to the degree that you need? He's a really difficult pass when you don't have other options. But I can tell you, I would seriously have to look at I don't know if I'm going to say this. I don't think I would still start Jerome Ford over Joe Mixon, but there's a conversation to be had if you really are shooting for pure, true upside. But Drew?
I'm with you. I'm a little nervous as well. So, all right. Tua Tagovailoa versus San Francisco. The Fantasy Pros ECR has him as a borderline QB1 this week. I'm here to tell you, just say no to Tua, turn the ball over. If you're in a 2-quarterback league, I love that. Never gets old. I don't care if he didn't throw a single interception the entire year. I would still say that. If you're in a 2-quarterback or a super flex league, this isn't for you. You're still going to play him in those leagues. But in your typical 1-quarterback, 12-team league, I think you should stay away from Tua this week. He's been on an absolute heater up until this past week. He was a top 10 quarterback for 4 straight weeks. He had multiple passing touchdowns in 4 straight weeks. He didn't throw an interception for 4 straight weeks. before he played Houston, but then that came crashing back down. He had 1 touchdown, 3 picks, and he wasn't even able to crack 200 passing yards on 40 pass attempts. I don't know when the last time was I saw Tua play that bad, but things aren't going to get any easier this week. He's playing the 49ers. They've been the second toughest matchup for fantasy quarterbacks over the last 6 weeks. And they played Baker, Geno, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Stafford in that 6-week sample. So it's not like they just coasted on easy matchups either. So, there's guys like we talked about Herbert, Rodgers already. They're behind Tua in the ECR this week. And then Stafford as well. He's behind Tua. I'd play all 3 of those guys over Tua. He's my quarterback 17 on the week. So in 1 quarterback leagues, even though the ECR tells you should be playing him, I don't think you should.
There you go. Quickly, with just a couple more pass plays, guys, just so people know maybe to temper expectations. Rich, lead with you.
You're muted, brother.
What Rich was saying is that I think that you guys
And
are
I
so
stopped my
smart.
camera too. There we go. No,
Just knock the whole camera down. Total chaos.
hit the end stream. We're done.
Yes.
So this isn't an indictment against Tucker Kraft by any means. It's just this week. I think he's got a tough matchup against the New Orleans Saints. They're ranked 21st against tight ends. They're still possibly exploitable, though. That they did face Njoku and Kelsey, who both scored over 16 points. Outside of them, they really haven't faced anybody other than like Ertz and Pitts, which, I mean, Pitts is who Pitts is, and that just kind of hurts my soul. But yeah, that's about it.
That's fair. It's more than fair. I hate trying to figure out that Rubik's Cube of who's going to be the player to roster. And I think we've determined it's Christian Watson from Green Bay. Drew, I think that we're going to probably disagree on one of my past plays, and it's strictly as a result of I'm concerned with the Atlanta Falcons pass offense. I think this is going to be a Bijan, Tyler Algier, and Drake London has me concerned against the Giants, which is something you never will say if it was. I was going to say if it's Kirk Cousins, which why that even makes sense in my head. Saying it backwards doesn't. But I think we all know that. I just worry about the offense as a whole. I know Michael Penix believers and truthers will disagree. I think that I'm shocked that I haven't heard more of the this is the Kyle Pitts week yet from people. Finally, it took 16 weeks for the resurgence, and I just expected it. I expect that today to be the
we're beaten down. Man, we
are so
left.
But you have the perfect week is what a rookie quarterbacks lean on that tight end. That's their safety valve. And no one's been saying it. So I'm proud of the fantasy community, which just means that it's going to be a Kyle Pitts 7 for 75 or something week this week. But I do. It's not based on anything other than I concern myself with the entire offense as a whole. And so Drake London does have me a little concerned.
Even if you're excited about the switch, the reality is that we talk about run funnel defenses. The Giants have been just that. I mean, they have been the 5th toughest matchup for fantasy receivers over the last 6 weeks. If you look at fantasy points above expectation given up to the position, like and I don't even know if it's so much the defensive personnel they have, rather than just teams don't really need to throw the ball that much against the Giants. And on the flip side of that, they've been the easiest, numero uno, the best matchup for fantasy running backs over the last 6 weeks. So to your point, Bijan's to smash, and there's a world where they're just like, do we really think they're gonna in Penix's first game? Penix, I don't know. Penix is more fun to say. In a world like, are we just going to let him come out in his first game and just throw the ball all over the place, or do they just hand the ball to Bijan and Algier over and over?
You heard is Drew say that the word Penix rolls off the tongue easier. So congratulations, Drew.
Off the tongue into my mouth.
Rolls off the tongue, nice and easy. Follow that one up. Anybody else?
Wait, is it my turn? Am I supposed to go?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to double down. I'm rolling Penix off my mouth, and I don't like Adam Thielen this week. And I promise that's not just because I'm a cokehead, and I think there's some kind of correlation there between Penix in the mouth and cokeheads. But Jalen Coker, he did show out last week, and that might have a little something to do with it. and I am a cokehead whenever it comes to that. But on top of that, we talked about run funnel defenses. The Cardinals have been another one of those. Over the last 6 weeks, they've been the 10th best matchup for fantasy running backs. I'm looking at you, Chuba. There's a joke there. Chuba, Penix, cokehead, mouth. There's something there. You guys will have to connect that one. But they've been the third toughest matchup for fantasy receivers. Now, the one plus for Thielen is that Arizona has been tougher on receivers that line up out wide versus wide receivers that line up in the slot. Over the last 6 weeks, they've given up 13.1 fantasy points per game to wide receivers that line up out wide versus 13.9 fantasy points to wide receivers that line up in the slot. So while I am a Jalen Coker fan, I think he's in for a tough week too. I'm not really excited for him either, but just having another talented pass catcher on the field is still a net negative for Thielen. And then the matchup is tough, even though they're tougher against receivers that line up out wide versus the slot. But if you're looking for a safe play that's going to give you a decent PPR floor, I still think Thielen can give you that. But if you need upside this week, and I don't think Thielen's the answer. And floor doesn't usually win fantasy championships this time of the year. We're shooting for upside. We need to score fantasy points. And so Thielen needs a pass for me this week.
Exactly right. So before we jump out of here, Pareko has one final question that I think he's been a good listener of the season. He has a defense question. Start off: the Colts, the Broncos, or the Falcons. Rich, do you have a preference of those three? I guess let me make sure that I give you the actual team they're playing so that you don't have to play
the Falcons got
play the Giants.
Giants.
Yep. The Broncos get the Chargers, and the Colts.
Tennessee
Titans. Yep.
Mason Rudolph.
Yep.
Ooh, that's kind of nice. I'm still going Denver. I'm going Denver Broncos. Denver Colts.
Hedge your bets. That's the easy way to do it. Make him figure out. You know what? You figure out what we were trying to say.
Yeah, that coin that I got, I'll go find that for you real quick.
Exactly. Drew, do you have a strong preference of the three?
I think I would probably lean the Falcons defense just because they get to play the Giants, and that's always a good thing. The Giants offense is just so terrible that it feels like even though the Falcons defense, like I prefer Denver's personnel over the Giants, or over the Falcons, but the matchup is so good. I think that I would probably lean that way, but I wouldn't go with the Colts. I'll say that, but I think between Denver or the Falcons, I don't really think you can go wrong.
Well, let's get the final portion of this, which is T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, or Isaac Guerendo at the flex. So, man, Garrett Wilson, will he have enough volume? Is this going to be another Devontae Adams? He's here for his legacy, not for W's. And does that mean it's going to be Devontae Adams fed against this Rams defense, which can succeed enough points against multiple wide receivers? Or is it going to be the sorry, I lost it there for a second. T. Higgins and the Bengals offense as a whole, which worries me. I think that they're going to be up. I don't think they're going to pass as much. So I say Garrett Wilson. Rich,
I'm fighting between that, and I do like Guerendo. I'm going Garrett Wilson.
I'm going to be no help here because I'm going. I guess you guys already have the majority, so you can just tell me to fuck off. But I'm going T. Higgins. T. Higgins is a top 10 receiver for me this week.
There you go.
The concerns with Cincinnati just getting up early because Cleveland probably won't put up much of a fight is very valid, but in that situation, you're just hoping that T. Higgins is part of the reason why Cincinnati got up early in the first place. So I would lean T. Higgins personally. But I'm actually slightly worried about Guerendo this week. The matchup against Miami, they've been pretty tough against running backs over the last 6 weeks. So I think if I was choosing, it would be between Higgins and Garrett Wilson, but I would lean Higgins.
There you go. And don't have a problem with that. Higgins is just, unfortunately, giving me the old, I'm going to be healthy. This knee injury is nothing to worry about. Don't bind me. And then I'm going to stand in your lineup on the field and not do anything. Not that that's happened over the last 3 years with T. Higgins and me.
No, he's never done that.
Never done that one at all.
Never played possum before ever.
Never. And one thing we've never done is go longer than the hour and run into the Shoot the Gap. Speaking of Shoot the Gap, they are up next after this. But if you've been watching along, we're 16 weeks in. We won't let you down any further unless unless we're wrong on some of these questions. If that was the case, we blame Rich, who was here. Thank you, Rich. Remember, that's what we have guests on. And you're not a guest. You're just
you're just the person we ship the blame to.
We just
That's
pass
right,
the
that's
buck.
right.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to let you lead us out of here, Rich. We always like to tell everybody Toodles on the way. So go for it.
All right. Yeah, no, it's happy to be here. Thank you again for having me on the show. Again, I'm Rich Sickles. You can find me at Rich Sickles GBM. I'm on the Waiver Wire show on Mondays, and I am on Dynasty 365 just before this Tuesdays on the Waiver Wire show, Wednesdays on Dynasty 365.
Whenever you do as much as you do, it's understandable that it all just kind of starts to run together.
Right. Yeah.
This is a busy man we've got on our hands. So
right. I'm already ready for next week because we're everything's shifting a day earlier. So
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We got the Christmas holiday next week. Yep, that's right. So everything's going to be coming at you a little bit earlier next week.
And we'll let everybody know when to find us next week. So Drew, I'm Nate. We'll see you next week. Toodles.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.